working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. Heightened security measures are in place across the country following the recent Marawi bombing. The Philippine Coast Guard is on high alert, especially in Mindanao, Visayas, and parts of Luzon, to ensure the safety of everyone at sea and in ports. Rescue workers are rushing to find victims after a volcano eruption in Indonesia killed at least 22 people. The economies of Southeast Asia, along with China and India, are facing some headwinds this year, according to the OECD's latest economic outlook. And it's official, 2023 is the hottest year in recorded history. Last month smashed the previous November heat record, pushing 2023's global average temperature to 1.46 degrees Celsius warmer than pre-industrial levels, according to the EU's Copernicus Climate Change Service. Heightened security measures are in place across the Philippines following the recent Marawi bombing. The Philippine Coast Guard is on high alert, especially in Mindanao, Visayas, and parts of Luzon, to ensure the safety of everyone at sea and in ports. More Coast Guard personnel are patrolling potential areas of concern like ports and ships. Sea marshals are also on board passenger vessels to keep everyone safe on their journeys.
Well, unang-una po, nagdagdag po tayo ng mga tauhan sa ating mga tinitingnan na kung saan maaaring maapektuhan itong pagbobomba, lalong-lalo na po sa mga ports na involved dito sa bahagi ng Mindanao. At yung mga barko po ay nilagyan din natin ng additional sea marshal para po sumama dun sa mga pasahero habang sila naglalayag sa karagatan. Nagdagdag din po tayo ng mga K9 units para tumulong po sa mga shipping companies na mapanatili na hindi magkaroon ng anumang bagay na maaaring ipuslit pagka po may mga pasahero, sa mga pasahero na maaaring magdala ng mga bagay na makapaminsala sa mga barko. And of course, dito sa Metro Manila ay naka-alerto rin po tayo. Naka-heighten alert po ang buong perso ng Philippine Coast Guard. Kasama po dyan yung mga floating assets natin na umiikot sa mga tabing dagat at lahat po ng mga vital installation na may kinalaman po sa paglalayag ay atin pong binabantayan. Kasama po namin sa pagkilos ang Philippine Ports Authority. Meron po silang port police na kasabay po ng mga patrol operations ng Philippine Coast Guard ay kasamang umiikot. At pati po sa information sharing, pati po sa layers ng security.
The Coast Guard is working closely with other authorities, including the Philippine Ports Authority, Port Police, Armed Forces of the Philippines, and Philippine National Police. They're sharing information and coordinating efforts to maintain public security.
Matibay po ang samahan ng Philippine Ports Authority at ng Philippine Coast Guard para mapanatili nga po na hindi tayo malulusutan ng anumang angka po ito sa nalalapit po na holiday season. Kino-complement natin yung mga security operations ng AFP at ng PNP, lalong-lalo na nga po sa mga port facilities at sa mga paglalayag ng barko. At tumutulong din po tayo sa pag-monitor ng mga coastal security, ng mga coastal security area o coastal areas na kung saan may mga coastal security patrol tayo at nag-o-observe po tayo ng mga movements ng mga tao at ng mga sasakyang pandagat. We are very active in sharing sa mga information sharing na meron.
While the focus is on preventing terrorism, the Coast Guard is also prepared for other threats like disturbances and crimes. And they'll be keeping an eye out for anything that could disrupt your holiday travels. Your vigilance is crucial as well. If you notice anything suspicious, please report it immediately to the authorities. Earlier, the PNP announced a full alert status beginning next week to ensure the safety and security of public this holiday season. On Sunday, Sunday, 4 people were killed, 50 others were wounded during a bomb explosion at the MSU Gymnasium in Marawi City during a Catholic Mass. 17 people are dead after a passenger bus plunged down a mountain in the central Philippines. The bus, traveling on a known accident-prone road, suffered a suspected mechanical failure, sending it careening off the mountainside Tuesday afternoon. 7 more are in critical condition and 4 are stable. Rescue efforts have concluded, with authorities now focusing on recovering the bus. Provincial Governor Rodora Cadiao expressed her deepest condolences to the families of the victims, calling the incident very, very sad. The Hamtic-Iloilo Road is notorious for accidents, and deadly crashes are common throughout the Philippines, where traffic rules are often ignored and vehicles are frequently in poor condition. Tragedy struck in southern Thailand last night as a double-decker bus traveling from Bangkok to the far south slammed into a tree, killing at least 14 people and injuring 32 others. The force of the crash was so immense, splitting the front of the bus in two and leaving the tree wedged in the wreckage. Authorities are still investigating the cause of the accident, but fatigue is a leading suspect. Police say the driver, who survived but was badly injured, may not have gotten enough sleep. And they're also working with the hospital to check his blood alcohol level and confirm the nationalities of the deceased. This heartbreaking incident underscores Thailand's ongoing battle with one of the world's worst road accident rates. The World Health Organization reports around 20,000 people are killed on Thai roads each year. In tonight's other story, the air hung heavy with ash and the acrid smell of sulfur. Rescue workers faces grim and determined clambered over the treacherous slopes of Mount Marapi, the once vibrant green replaced by a desolate gray wasteland. And here, just a day ago, a fiery maw had opened, spewing forth a torrent of ash and rock that claimed the lives of at least 22 people. Among the survivors, 22-year-old Rido bore the scars, both physical and mental, of his encounter with the mountain's wrath.
Putu karim keras bunyinya itu.
Keras, Pak.
Kedengaran.
Maksudnya ke belakang.
Itu langsung kabur ke bawah lari.
Langsung kabur. Nengok kawan kabur kan, semua kabur. Dan lompat yang jatuh.
Itu Rido berlindung di balik pohon tadi, Bang.
Di balik batu.
Di balik batu.
Tidak ada pohon sana.
His eyes, haunted by the inferno he narrowly escaped, held a flicker of hope. But that hope lay buried beneath tons of ash and rock, where bodies yet to be identified awaited retrieval. Ahmad Jais, the Indonesian Red Cross leader, echoed the urgency.
Yang sisa ini ditemukan di atas, di Tugu Marvel sama lapangan yang di atas. Yang kemarin belum sempat disisir teman-teman relawan untuk evakuasi karena erupsi masih terus berjalan. Tadi pagi pun sudah sampai, erupsi lagi, turun lagi. Tapi siang tadi erupsi berhenti, kawan-kawan coba menyisir ke atas, ada beberapa yang ditemukan.
Hari ini sampai dan seterusnya ini kita lebih safety karena erupsi sampai pagi ini sudah 5 kali atau 6 kali di data dari BMKG. Jadi ini menjadi kewaspadaan kami, tim gabungan ini, baik itu masyarakat, ini sama-sama kita mengutamakan safety.
The mountain, however, remained unforgiving. Hendra Gunawan, head of Indonesia's volcanology agency, warned Marapi is still active, and he said we cannot ignore its anger. He placed the blame squarely on the shoulders of those who ventured too close, ignoring warnings and trespassing into forbidden zones. The search was a race against time, a promise etched in the hearts of the rescuers. 7 days they vowed to find every last one. Myanmar's military leader Min Aung Hlaing has appealed to ethnic armed groups for a political solution to the ongoing conflict. This comes as the junta faces its most significant challenge yet, with coordinated offensives launched by 3 rebel groups in northern Shan State. State media reported Lang's remarks on Tuesday where he warned if armed organizations keep on being foolish, residents of the relevant regions will suffer bad impacts. He urged the groups to, quote, consider the lives of the people and solve their problems politically. This call for dialogue stands in stark contrast to the junta's usual approach of military force. Since seizing power in 2021, the military has faced widespread resistance, both from the public and armed ethnic groups. The recent offensive, launched in late October, has seen rebel groups capture towns and key trade hubs bordering China. The UN estimates that over 250 civilians, including children, have tragically lost their lives in the fighting. With the junta facing pressure both internally and externally, Lang's sudden openness to political dialogue could mark a turning point in the conflict. However, trust remains fragile, and the success of any future negotiations will hinge on the junta's commitment to genuine power sharing and addressing the long-standing grievances of ethnic minorities. The economies of Southeast Asia, along with China and India, are facing some headwinds this year, and that is according to the OECD's latest economic outlook. Growth is expected to slow down to 5.3% this year, but it's projected to pick up slightly to 5.3% next year.
Most significantly, real GDP growth in emerging Asia, which covers the 10 ASEAN countries, China and India, will face headwinds in 2023. We will expect it to weaken, reaching 5.3% this year, but it is expected to improve to 5.4% in 2024. Similarly, economic growth of the 10 member countries of ASEAN will slow down and is forecast at 4.2% in 2023 and 4.7% in 2024. Emerging Asian economies will face challenges in coping with a persistent downturn in external demand, as exports have contracted substantially amid a prolonged slowdown in advanced economies.
One major risk to the region's growth is persistently weak external demand.
Emerging Asian economies will face challenges in coping with a persistent downturn in external demand, as exports have contracted substantially amid a prolonged slowdown in advanced economies. But at the same time, the region faces challenges and the risks in the near term to which policymakers need to remain alert. A major risk to the region's growth is persistently weak external demand stemming from the prolonged economic slowdown in advanced economies and the weaker than expected economic recovery of China. How economies cope with external headwinds will depend both on the diversity of their export base and on the effectiveness of policy response.
Tight money and market swings from rich countries will sting.
The region will also feel the impact of the tight monetary policy in advanced economies and volatility in global markets. Financial and capital markets will remain vulnerable to the high interest rate environment on both the domestic and international fronts.
Trade wars and tensions could mess with food, energy, and factories.
Finally, we cannot ignore the impact of continued geoeconomic fragmentation and heightened geopolitical tensions.
El Niño might bring more trouble.
These external uncertainties, plus the arrival of El Niño, will present risks to food and energy security and supply chain operations, which could pose inflationary pressures in the regions.
In other news, U.S. President Joe Biden called for global condemnation of what he said was horrific sexual violence by Hamas during the October 7 attacks on Israel. Biden's comments come after campaigners in Israel have derided what they see as a muted international response to gender-based violence during the attack. President Biden said there had been reports that Hamas used rape to terrorize women and girls during the attacks last month, in which Israel says 1,200 people were killed. Israeli women and legal activists have accused international rights groups of maintaining a conspiracy of silence over alleged rapes and other sexual crimes during the October 7 attacks. The UN Secretary General and UN Women issued statements on the allegations only last week, despite Israeli activists sending letters to UN agencies shortly after the attacks. Campaigners say the responses were minimal, leaving them deeply frustrated and accusing the global human rights community of betrayal.
I do not deny for a moment the suffering of innocent women and children in Gaza. I am concerned with the loss of life in Gaza, including the number of women and children who are victims of this armed conflict. However, at the same time, it cannot be denied that the abuse and sexual violence of women and the continued holding of hostages constitute crimes against humanity.
While the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has always been a source of concern for women's rights, the recent taking of 90 women in captivity is a horrifying new law that the international community cannot accept. As part of the October 7th massacre, women have been subjected to rape, torture, and mutilation as means of warfare. The cruelty is beyond words, and the evidence is heartbreaking. Hamas actions targeting and attacking women constitute a war crime that cannot be tolerated.
It's official, 2023 is the hottest year in recorded history. This grim milestone comes after a record-breaking November, the sixth consecutive month to smash temperature highs. The EU's climate monitor Copernicus confirmed the news, adding even more pressure on the COP28 climate talks in Dubai to take decisive action. November wasn't just hot, it was scorching. 2 days were a staggering 2 degrees Celsius warmer than pre-industrial times, a first in human history. This wasn't an isolated incident. The first 11 months of 2023 were already 0.13 degrees Celsius hotter than the previous record holder, 2016. The message is clear. Our planet is in crisis. 2023 witnessed a string of devastating extreme weather events, a brutal reminder of the consequences of inaction.
Together, Antarctica and Greenland are melting well over 3 times faster than they were in the early 90s. It is profoundly shocking to stand on the ice of Antarctica and hear directly from scientists how fast the ice is disappearing. We are trapped in a deadly cycle. Ice reflects the sun's rays. As it vanishes, more heat is absorbed into the Earth's atmosphere. And that means more heating, which means more storms, floods, fires, and droughts across the globe, and more melting, which means, with less ice, even more heating.
Yet global carbon emissions continue to rise. COP28 negotiators are on the clock, and they're grappling with a crucial question: will they agree to phase out or merely phase down fossil fuels, the main culprit behind our warming planet? The answer will determine if we can avoid breaching the 1.5 degrees Celsius warming limit set in the Paris Agreement, a threshold scientists warn could trigger irreversible planetary tipping points like melting ice sheets.
We want to make sure that nobody, no one at COP, no one negotiator will leave the room without knowing how much climate change is affecting our health. Second, we want then as well to understand that we need to better prepare our health systems to become climate resilient and to cope with the terrible damage that climate change is doing to our health. And for that, we will need financial resources. We need to unlock financial resources to make sure that our health systems are the one prepared to cope with the consequences of climate change.
If we do not signal the terminal decline of the fossil fuel era as we know it, we welcome our own terminal decline. And we choose to pay with people's lives.
Agriculture and food systems have a central role to play in tackling climate change. Agriculture and food system solutions, or agri-food system solutions, can help countries with their efforts to adapt to climate change, to build resilience to climate change, to mitigate emissions, to reduce their emissions of greenhouse gases, while at the same time addressing their many food security challenges.
Now, this is a turning point. The hottest year ever recorded is a wake-up call. COP28 cannot afford to be another talk shop. And we need concrete plans, immediate action, and the courage to phase out fossil fuels once and for all. The future of our planet hangs in the balance.
Leaders must drastically up their game now with record ambition, record action, and record emissions reductions. The next round of national climate plans will be pivotal. These plans must be backed with the finance, technology, support, and partnerships to make them possible. The task of leaders at COP28 is to make sure that happens.
As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.